Hi, this is Dale, and I want to go over this kind of quickly. So let's take a look at what I got here rigged for this wheel here. This is the wheel, okay, and it's actually split into two parts. Okay, if you look at the layer itself and the binding, and if I select the bone, you can see that the bottom half of this circle is wheel is bound to the bottom bone, and the top half is bound to the top. And to get the circle right, I had a reference. So the reason why this is done is because the bones, when you make a bone, okay, the rotation is on the very tip or the very end of it. So to get a center rotation, this is an easy way to get a center rotation with just using two bones. And know that this is slightly off because the center point is exactly right there in the middle. The bone locations, you got to think, you got to put them in manually. If you were to select the bone, hey, here, and you look at the positionings, okay, they're all on 0, 0, and 0, so that the end is there, and the only difference is the angle. All right, so now the hierarchy is laid out like this. This one bone is hierarchy to this bone I call it a rotation bone. Okay, and if you take a look at the bone that's underneath this one right here, it's also hierarchied to this bone for spin. Okay, and if I take a look at this bone here, it's labeled spin. And let's go down the timeline, okay, make sure this stuff's working properly. And I'm going to rotate it, and it spins, and it's spinning the circle. Of course, it's off-centered, so it gives a little wobble. So the next thing you got to look at is that this bone spin, hey, its constraints, hey, is to the master bone over here. Okay, so its position is controlled by the master on a 1-to-1. Let's close this. And what happens is that, okay, see, this is not hierarchied or linked to it with the arrow, because if it does that, anytime this bone rotates, this will rotate and will mess everything up. Let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me go back, because I don't want, and I'm going to grab this bone, grab the hierarchy, and I'm a hierarchy. Now you think it should move with it, but what happens is that when this bone moves, everything moves with it, and you don't want that. You don't want the hierarchy, you just want the position. So let's go and undo that. Alt, select this bone, and so we're back to this. Now, as the master moves, so does that wheel. And of course, the rotation has no effect on it. All right, so that's the next thing, Kate, I'm going to show you is the cart. And the cart is, again, I could use layer binding, but I choose point binding because you might want the cart to move, sort of, add a few more bones, but currently the cart is completely point bound to this bone here. So I'm back. So what happens is, let me zoom out. So as I move the master across, okay, I lost something there, and the cart moves with it, and I can rotate the wheel down the timeline. Now let me get rid of all that. Now the one problem I'm looking at is the hierarchy here on the master. That should move with everything else. And the problem is this needs to be linked to the master too, and its positioning. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to go to the target bone here, and I'm going to make the position part of the master. I'm going to close this, and it should fix everything. And let's go down the timeline, because the best way to check something is down the timeline. So now the leg for your character is moving, plus you still got, oops, okay. Now I screwed up, okay, because it's moving, but it's moving only to the master. So I gotta change that. So, bone constraints, none, close, and let's see what happens if I hierarchy to the master. And of course I did it down the timeline and with a new feature. Okay, let's try this one more time. Down timeline. And let's see what happens. We move, that moves, and the hierarchy allows you to move it, and so you still have the bones, you still have the movement, you still have the oops, I don't want to rotate that. I want to rotate this guy, and I can still move the wheel, and so there's your cart rigged. Oops. This master should actually be constraints, angles. I don't want it to move, and a quick way to do it is to zero the angles out, and that way it won't rotate when you're working with stuff. See, it won't rotate, but it still allows you to move everything around, and you got your movement, your legs, and you got your cartwheel rotating. And of course you really need to lay this out in a grid or something so you know that the foot action is correct, and the cartwheel spinning, it's not sliding or over rotating per the ground. So that's it. That's this, and I'm going to put this file for a link on it in the description. So thanks for your time watching, and bye.